In this video, we are going to learn about the ablative of means. The ablative of means is introduced in the Grammar for 3C on page 172. The ablative has many uses. We first saw it with prepositions. Many prepositions require it. The ablative is required by all prepositions that mean from. For instance, a and ab, which means away from, de, which means down from, and a and x, which means out of. In addition, the ablative is used with the preposition cum, which means with the preposition sine, which means without, and with the prepositions in and sub, when there's no motion involved. These words indicate location. This means in or on. This means under. And when there's no motion involved in these expressions of position, we use the ablative. Of course, if there's motion involved, we use the accusative instead. Then, after learning the ablative with prepositions, we started learning the independent ablative. The independent ablative is the term used for the ablative on its own without a preposition. So with the independent ablative, no prepositions. The first independent ablative we learned was the ablative of description. As for instance, in this instance here, miles magna virtute, a soldier with great virtue. We would probably better translate that into English as a soldier of great virtue. But in fact, it's literally a soldier with great virtue, because we generally translate the ablative with the with. The next use of the independent ablative we saw was the ablative of time. For example, hoc tempore, at this time. All you have to do is put an expression of time in the ablative, and you indicate what time something is happening. Or ea nocte. Nocte is the ablative of nox noctis, night. So ea nocte means on that night. We're now about to learn the ablative of means, which is our third use of the independent ablative. The independent ablative is used to tell what tool is used to do an action. We call this the ablative of means. It is translated with. Here's an example. Here is a woman who is writing with a stylus here. A stylus here, you can maybe just barely see it, in her tabellae. Remember the wax tablets that Romans used to write? So this is a stylus. In Latin, the word is stilus, stili, masculine. And we can say in Latin, haec femina, this woman, stilo scribit, is writing stilo with a stylus. Stilo is in the ablative. It's from stilus, and it's in the ablative, and it's translated with a stylus. This is the ablative of means. If you're telling the means or the instrument or the tool with which someone is doing something, you merely put that word in the ablative. No word for with, no word like cum or anything like that, and you translate it into English as with. So this woman is writing with a stylus. Now Latin distinguishes between doing something with a thing as a tool and doing something with a person as a companion. Doing something with a thing is ablative of means, and no cum, the Latin word for with, is used. For instance, haec femina stilo scribit. No word for with is used here, no cum, and it would be a mistake, it would be an error to use a word for with. Doing something with a person as a companion, however, requires a cum. So, or this is called the ablative of accompaniment. Here's an example. In urbem cum Marco abeo. So, I'm going off to the city with Marcus. You must use the cum here because you're doing this in the company of Marcus. You're doing it with him. Latin makes a big distinction between something like I'm writing with the stylus, where you're just using a tool, versus doing something with another person. When you're using a tool, you don't use cum. When you're talking about a person, you're doing something in the company of a person or along with a person, you must use the cum. That's mandatory. Here's an example. Here are some men trying to ram down a gate into a city. They're actually using a battering ram. You can see the ram's head here. They're using a battering ram. Okay. Now this man here is Marcus, our old friend Marcus. And these three men are soldiers. And we could say in Latin, milites cum Marco portum effregunt. The soldiers are breaking down the gate with Marcus. And to indicate that they're doing this with Marcus's help and with the companionship of Marcus, you must use the cum. That's the ablative of accompaniment. On the other hand, here's another situation. Here's a gate, and here are some men, and here's poor Marcus one more time. This time the men are going to use Marcus to batter down the gate. He's now being used as a tool. And you might say, Viri Marco portum effregunt. The men are breaking down the gate with Marcus. Okay, in this case, he's being used as a tool. So there's no cum. Okay, and here we go. Poor Marcus. One little note on this, a note on cum. Cum is a preposition and usually goes before nouns. For example, cum Marco with Marcus, or cum viro with the man, or cum serva with the slave woman. But with pronouns, cum often must be attached after the pronoun. For example, me cum means with me. Me is the pronoun and cum comes after it. So me cum is how you say with me in Latin. Te cum is how you say with you. Here's the word for you, te, the ablative of the word te. Nobis cum, nobis is the ablative of nos, we, so this means with us. Vobiscum, that means with y'all. This is the ablative of the word for y'all, vos. Secum is how you say with himself, with herself, or with itself, or with themselves. You may remember this from the stage directions in the text we're using, where people are always, where the text is always saying, secum loquitur. He speaks with himself. We in English would probably say speaks to himself, but the idiom in Latin is to speak with himself. Here's quocum. Quocum means with whom. And quibuscum means with whom when you're talking about more than one person. Here's a summary. We have now met 3 uses of the ablative without prepositions. That is, of the independent ablative. The ablative of description, the ablative of time, and now the ablative of means. The ablative of means does not use cum. Femino stilo scribet. The woman is writing with a stylus. The ablative of accompaniment uses cum. In urbem cum Marco abeo. I am going off to the city with Marcus.
The end. This has been a Barking Blue Heeler production.